Welcome everyone to our first episode of Career Spotlight this semester. I am very excited to have with us Karen Cruz, who was a former student in the translation program in Spanish. And I was thinking, Karen, that you were in the audience just not so long ago, watching other Career Night or Career Spotlight, as we call it today, episodes. And now you are the protagonist. Now you are the star. How exciting is that?
I'm very excited. Hi, everybody, and thanks for being here, and thank you for having me. It's great always to be back to the department, like somewhat in the department, and to be speaking with you and everybody else.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen, for taking the time and for accepting our invitation. So I would like to first introduce Karen a little bit, and then I'm going to be asking her questions, and she's going to be explaining her education, her experience now, her work experience, and some advice and recommendations that she can give you about the work that she does. And today, Career Spotlight is about market research and translation, which is an area very exciting, I think, with many job opportunities for everyone. So my first question for you, Karen, would be if you can share with us a little bit about your education.
Of course. So I graduated in 2020, pandemic graduate, with a bachelor's degree in Spanish with a concentration in translation. I also approved the translation certificate. And aside from that, I did a minor in linguistics. And throughout the 2 years that I was at Montclair, I also got certified as a per diem court interpreter with the state of New York. And I've done some work with them up until today.
Good, good. So when did you graduate from Montclair State University?
When?
May
2020, August.
August 2020. Okay, so very recently. So tell us a little bit after you graduate with your Spanish major, concentration in translation, which is a combination that many of the students who are listening to us tonight, they do have the same concentration. What did you do? How did you start your searching for a job, like putting yourself there in the job market?
Well, the first thing that I did was I went from having a student resume to having to transform that, change it into more of a professional resume. And one of the things that really helped me to get the job that I have now is that I was very active throughout my student career, if you can call it like that, because that helped me to acquire experience. And one of those activities, or one of those things that I did while I was student, was doing the court interpreting internship. So I was a pioneer within the program. There was a short program of 25 hours going to the courts for 5 hours every Friday. And so that helped me, having a background in Spanish and being bilingual, helped me to expose myself to not only to legal terminology, and learning how to handle myself in that environment, but also exposing myself to cultural environments within the court. So that was one thing. And then also there was another thing that we did. I was one of the first ones to, and I say this because I feel very proud. We did with my group at the time the project with the Repertorio Español, which is we did a play from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, audiovisual. No, it was an audiovisual translation. It was I'm forgetting audio description. My apologies. And so that, doing that, working with both languages at a time, and putting that into my resume, while putting every course that I took at Montclair on the concentration in translation, and the combination that I did with linguistics was absolutely something that really helped me to get the job that I have today. Not only because I took Spanish linguistics, but also I learned about linguistics in other languages, which is very helpful for what I do today. And aside from that, I always read emails that Maria Jose always sent to my group at the time. I am active up until today. I'm not in school, but I am always checking my handshake application app on my phone. There's great opportunities there. There is fellowships, there is internships, there is a lot of activities that you can take advantage of while being in school, so that you prepare yourself with experience and you expose to yourself to the real life outside of a classroom. So when you graduate, you already have some experience besides the job that you've done while you're a student that doesn't really pertain to your career.
How does it work? You mentioned the handshake application. How does it work?
So you pretty simple. You download it and you sign up to it with your school email, and it helps you create. It's kind of like a LinkedIn sort of thing, but only for students at Montclair. And so you enter your major, you enter your skills, you start up building your profile, and based on that, since there's always like career nights or there is career days at school, and then there's recruiters coming in, they usually take a look at what's happening or what students are up in the platform, and they invite you to come to their tables to speak to them. Or if you don't have the time because of schedule conflict, you can always book an appointment to speak to them and see if there is something out of it. And I think that emails are very important to read because there's great opportunities. Like I said, internships, fellowships, and a bunch of opportunities that everybody can take advantage of.
So you recommend the handshake app for the MSU students. I don't know if you guys have it already, but something to pay attention to, right?
Right, yeah.
Looking for a job. Okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to mention, because it came up, you brought that in the conversation we had yesterday, and I thought it was very important, is how you prepare your resume. How, what did you do in terms of your resume and how to present it more professionally?
Right. So I think there's two factors to that. And one of them is sign up for platforms like LinkedIn, right? Like Indeed. Those are my go-to, or were my go-to before I landed my job. There is professional resume reviewers, which some of them are affordable, some of them are not so affordable. In my case, I used Indeed to have a professional reviewer go over my resume. And the way that I tailored that was the job title that I was aiming for. So I was aiming for anything that entitled Spanish linguistics, right? Because that was my background, that was my bachelor's, and I also took linguistics as a minor, and I had the background in linguistics in other languages as well. So I put that as the job title. Based on that, I listed my experience, my skills, and made it short and sweet so recruiters don't get bored of reading your resume. Some recruiters don't go up to read 2 to 3, 4 pages. After that, I hire someone directly from Indeed, and I send in my resume the way I had it. I explained to them what I was looking for in the workforce, and they got back to me within 72 hours with comments and updates that I could probably make to my resume to make it more outstanding to recruiters. And that was one of the first steps. The second step was I jumped back to LinkedIn and I uploaded my resume. But not only that, I made sure that I made visible most of my information on my LinkedIn. So because nowadays LinkedIn it's one of the go-tos for anybody that's looking for employees or looking for a job. And I make sure that I also listed like all the courses that I took in translation, because that's what I wanted to go into for. I listed my skills. I listed my most recent employment. I wasn't going to list 10 years, but at least do that. And then I started networking with people in the industry. Aside from before I was with G3, I was freelancing. So I created an Instagram profile, and as up until now, I have about, it's not big numbers, but there's a small community of 400 linguists that follow my page, and I follow them back, and that's networking. That's
Mhm.
networking, because if I don't have a job at the moment, but I have a group of people that support me and that they know that their company is hiring in my field, chances are that I'm probably gonna have a recommendation or can speak to that colleague about finding a job in that field. And I started networking on LinkedIn, and eventually, after doing all that, all of those updates and following those steps, and bettering my resume, updating it continuously, making sure that the keywords on my resume matched what the employer was looking for. So if an employer was looking for someone bilingual, Spanish, English, time management, CAP tools, editing, proofreading, I make sure that not only I had those skills, but that my resume had that, so that they could match with the employer, so that I can be a qualified job seeker for that job. Because technology is advancing so quick that lately companies don't use, they have their human resources department for sure, but in how many applications do they get in a day, in a week? So they're using engines to try to match what they post with what you're applying for, what your qualifications are, so that if you're matching with that application goes to human resources of the company that you're probably applying to, so that your resume outstands, and then they can just go over and see if you're a good candidate for that position. So that's important.
I think that that's so interesting that now that job employers are looking through technology to use to select and to choose what resumes are outstanding for the type of job, right? For keywords, they are searching for keywords, or it's a machine who is going to go through all these tons and millions of resumes in order to get those keywords like bilingual, like technology, translation. And it's very interesting that you took the time and you spend some money to hire someone professional, right? To help you with that. I don't know if
Right.
it's something that I would have considered in my times, for example. I know that we have a Center for Writing Excellence at the university, but I don't know if they do this type of a specific modifications or suggestions in your resume. I don't know if it's something that they do
I'm
here.
not quite sure, but perhaps.
Okay. So the second step was doing the strategies to look for a job, preparing your resume, hiring a specialist, all these networks, websites. And now the good moment, the final moment when you found your job at G3. Can you explain a little bit about how you were selected, if you had to go through a process of interviews, and then what do you do in this company and what is your job here?
So fortunately, after doing what I explained previously, I actually found my job through LinkedIn. So whoever is my boss today, he sent me a message through LinkedIn and said, I went over your resume. I see your qualifications, and I think you will be a great fit for this role that's open. Would you be interested? I went over it. I was interested. It was something that I liked. And we started with the process. And the first step was to have a first interview. They asked me about my background. And after that, they liked my educational background, and then we went on to do a test. So the test had to do with things that, as a student, I have to acknowledge that I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. And I'm not going to say I was a bad student. It's just that when you're a student, you just skip through things and you don't think that that's going to be important in the future. Um, but basically it was about grammar, about omissions, additions to translations. It was about syntax, about semantics, about these things that we discussed while I was a student in some of my classes, and making sure that I did basically like an editing phase to a document, leaving comments on the columns of the test, finding errors, and proving myself that I was cut out for the job basically. So it was a test. It was 3 different files, 3 different extensions. Worked with Microsoft Word and then Excel. And then I sent those back, and then they had someone review it, and then they got back to me within, I think, a week or so, and then they told me I had passed the test, and so I went on to the second phase of interviews. I interviewed with the COO and the director of production at the company, and then I started working at G3 November of last year, so it's going to be a year.
Good.
My role at G3 is of a quality reviewer, and G3 Translate is the division of market research within TransPerfect. They do basically everything. Is a translation company, but where I am is in the market research department. And so that you can have an idea of what market research is basically just the effort to gather information about markets and clients and customers' behaviors. And this is just a component of business strategies, right? So we're trying to help our clients research and gather information for products that they're going to launch. It could be any type of product, and we go off based on basically surveys, right? Which is the easiest way to gather information. So if you don't mind, Maria Jose, showing them that little slide that I
Sure.
typed, please.
Is this one, right?
Play, yeah.
You want to be commenting at the same time that I am?
Yeah. So then we have several workflows that we do, but the basic one will be translation. So translation is just the first. This is the linguistic cycle that we call. So the translation is the first step in the cycle. So basically, we receive the request from a client. We prepare the files, we send them out to our linguists to have them translated into the market, and we call languages markets because it's market research. So that's just the first step. And then after that, we go to editing of proofreading. So the proofreader or the editor is the one that catches those little mistakes that probably the translator didn't catch when they were working on the first phase of the translation. So we're looking for content, we're looking for context, we're looking for grammar, we're looking for syntax, we're looking for any mistakes that could happen, could have happened during the translation phase. I'm not sure why it's not showing. But that's fine. I'm sorry. And then the quality reviewing or the final I, it's basically I'm sorry. It's basically what I do in the final step. So we had already done 2 phases, and the third one will be checking for the whole files again. And this includes the same thing as the editing, but you also are including localization in this. And so if you guys don't know what localization is basically putting words into the context of a market. So let's say in Puerto Rico, orange is called a china, but in Colombia, the orange is called naranja. So if I'm even translating for Spanish markets, different Spanish markets, not every Spanish speaker calls one item the same thing. And so we have to look for that. We also have to look for currencies, right? We also have to keep in mind that um, some terms in Spanish in the US are allowed. Some English terms, we borrow them and put them into the Spanish market in the US because it's allowed, because people understand, even though they don't speak Spanish, they don't understand, they understand certain terms. And so we can borrow those terms, but we cannot do the same in Spanish for Spain or Spanish for Colombia. So that is one thing. We also look for, I already said currency. We look for grammar errors, spelling errors, double spaces, extra spaces. And basically, once we're done with idiomatic expressions, right? Whatever we say in English is not, render completely and literally into Spanish. So we look for that as well. So that's basically my role within the quality reviewing team.
Okay. So I was wondering, when you mentioned idiomatic expressions, right? That's something that we always emphasize in our translation classes, how the cultural component plays a role. And you just mentioned an example, right? Between lexical and cultural, like Puerto Rico says chinas, whereas in Colombia would be naranjas. So what is the place of culture, especially taking into account in your job that Spanish is spoken in 23 countries?
It's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only, let's say we focus on Spanish, but let's say I just came across something really interesting recently, in which Black Friday in America is Black Friday, whereas in other countries is White Friday. And I said, what is this? Why this is a mistranslation? And I have the fortune to communicate with linguists across the globe and ask questions about these things. So not only am I trying to make a file better, but I'm also enriching, like I'm getting better knowledge of culture myself, because if in my mind, living in the US and being Hispanic, I would have thought Black Friday is just Black Friday everywhere, right? Even in our countries right now, Spanish speaking countries, Black Friday is Black Friday in Spanish. At least in Colombia, some of the countries have adopted that, but in some other countries, as to just go on with this example, is White Friday per se. And then cultural adaptations are important. There is some countries that don't allow certain questions in regards to gender, in regards to, because of religious beliefs, or there are some countries that don't allow political questions, age. Some cultures have more formalities than others. So you have to take that into accountability at the time of doing the type of work that you're doing, in my case, that I'm doing.
Okay, so you mentioned that in the linguistic cycle, there are like 3 stages, right? Translation, editing, and quality reviewing. Are you supervising the 3 of them? Are you more involved in one over the other, or how does it work exactly, your position?
I am not entirely involved in the 3 phases. I'm not. I take responsibility of the last phase, which we also call final I. Okay. That is before the full job is sent back to a project manager for on prepping and then final delivery to the client.
And I know that you have these confidentiality agreements, but could you give us an example, like to see what stages, and with a real example of a brand, for example, or a customer, and how it works in each stage, or problems that you found, or challenges? You don't have to say the name, but For example, if there is something that you want to share of a particular situation that was challenging because of the cultural component or the lexical or the idiomatic expressions, or maybe the editing was hard.
So there was one that the target language said something. It was a formality, and so in this culture, saying "Oh, congratulations!" It's not as more formal as saying "Thank you for helping us with this." So basically, it's like for them saying in certain instances, saying congratulations for this is more like, you're just giving you, like, it's not well received as thanking someone for cooperating in a way. Um, because we work with surveys, so sometimes we the target languages, in this case, I'm just finding the words around it, so that but basically, yeah, it was just a formality of saying, we appreciate, helping us with this, and instead of like, you've given the opportunity to do this, sort of thing. I'm not sure if I'm being clear, but that was just a formality. And then challenges, I come across challenges almost every day when it comes to localizing things. I think that if you ever look into localization, it's a really fun thing. Deviate, it's just a parenthesis within the whole comment, but yeah, formalities and cultural adaptations are sometimes a really important thing when it comes to doing the final I.
Mm-hmm. Is there more a type of products that you enjoy working better in market research and translation than others?
Yes, I dislike medical terminology as a whole. I am kind of more of a legal terminology gal. I like legal stuff, but within my role, I really enjoy technology. Anything in technology involved, I always get excited about, because it's the world that we live in, and also it's just great to see how things are, advancing, and how uh, they come up with new things and new products. And so it's really exciting to work with technology um, terminology.
Okay. Now I want to ask you about the courses that you took at Montclair University and how they connect with your work that you actually are currently doing at G3. Is a connection?
Yeah, definitely. So you come to mind when it comes to well, I took all the courses with you, but specialized translation was one of the courses that really helped me, because um, again, going back to measurements and going back to different topics that I deal with every day. So I remember translating menus and translating um, not only menus, but we translated like basically any type of technical content, and that's what we deal with most of the days, if not every day. And then that's when it comes to converting miles into kilometers or backwards or pounds and kilos, and things like this that we learn in class, and that I didn't think honestly at the time was important, and is important. That was one of the things that I took with me. Also modifying the techniques of translation and how to use them in the in the workforce. Um, the courses that I took in Spanish linguistics, and also I think it got to a point in which I was almost done with my BA in Spanish, and I had the option to do electives, and I said, what am I gonna do? And when I chose to do mixed linguistic courses, with the Spanish VA, it was a great thing because this is something that I use today. Because again, as I mentioned previously, all that background in linguistics helps me deal with languages that I don't speak that, but I might understand at least their syntax or their context, their content, not the content, but the context of certain things, or how the family of the languages are from, where are they from. So these courses help me to prepare to use those skills that I developed through my student career to do what I do today at G3.
Yeah, I think it's a great combination that you were, I think, Spanish major and minor in linguistics.
Yes.
It was a very good complement. And my last question for you before we open to questions. If you need to give some recommendations, piece of advice to students who are thinking about declaring a major in Spanish, or students who are actually already in the Spanish major with a concentration in translation, what would be your recommendation, advice to them?
I would say take advantage of every resource that the school offers you right now. I would say take advantage of everything that's being given to you right now, like in terms of knowledge and in terms of opportunities to participate at any programs, because in my experience and in my opinion, when I graduated school, I wouldn't have had the resume that I had if I wouldn't have participated in everything that I did. Because it's better to graduate with something within your field, whether it is an internship or any label is small or big, but anything that's within your field, it's better to graduate with that on your resume than graduated with nothing and starting from scratch in the real world. Um, and and um, and I think Spanish is just such a great opportunity to find, knowing Spanish or even learning it, and being bilingual, declaring a major in Spanish is such a great opportunity to have a higher stake to find a job in the work space. I'm sorry. And translation doesn't limit, is not limited to market research in my case. It's not limited to literary translation. There's so much going on right now. You can work in many branches of translation, subtitling, doubling, voiceover. If you want to be an artist and you're more artistic, you're bilingual. You can do anything with both languages. If you want to review content like I do, you can do that as well. If you want to dedicate yourself to doing literary translation, you can do that. There is many things that you can do, and you won't be losing anything. Instead, I think you'll be gaining so much by declaring a major in Spanish. And also you can help just maybe clear out this stigma that because you're bilingual, you can do any type of work. No, you can help help the industry grow more and know that, and let the world know that by being a professional translator, that you have more than the bilingual and the knowledge of two languages in your head, but you have prepared yourself to do an outstanding job as a professional translator.
Very good. Very well said. Okay, thank you so much, Karen. And I'm going to open the floor for questions and comments in English and Spanish, en español, en inglés. Veo a Liam con la mano levantada. Muy bien, Liam. Adelante.
Thank you very much for so much information. First, I have two questions. The first would have to be, do you ever reflect on the grading, since you had Doctora as your teacher, as your professor? Do you ever go back to what she's graded you on entregas, on certain work to make yourself better when you're doing your work?
Yes, I have. In fact, I started going to school in 2017, and believe it or not, I still have those modules, those books that she would give us every semester. And you would think that there's information that we couldn't go through when we were in school. But yeah, you will go back and you would see that that mistakes that you made then you shouldn't be making now. And that's a great thing to do, because I feel like as you're evolving, your knowledge and your language is also evolving. So that's also great to go back and check yourself and see, well, I'm still doing this wrong, so I should be getting more work into it to improve it. So to answer your question, yeah, I do that.
You ever use like DeepL or like Google Translate, like for like little translations, or you just do it all off of your knowledge?
I would be lying if I would told you that DeepL, I don't use DeepL, because we all know that it's a neurotechnology, right? It learns your language. But at the same time, what good are you doing to yourself if you're relying on DeepL? Is DeepL going to translate your idiomatic expressions? Is DeepL going to take into accountability or in mind that you probably have to have a gender neutral or a bigender job? DeepL is not going to know that unless you program it to work that way. Google Translate is just still in the works. Not my favorite. I don't look at it. I didn't look at it when I was in school. It was a big no, and I'm sure Maria Jose is still a big no.
Well, I think that machine translation has evolved since you were a student, and it's amazing in 2 years how much the use of machine translation engines have been more sophisticated and improved. And actually, I don't think that anyone in the professional world starts a translation from scratch. So Google Translate, DeepL, all that MateCat or MateCate, whatever you want to call it, it's a good way to start as long as you know how to do post-editing. So Google Translate, fine. DeepL, fine. But Google Translate is not going to be it's not going to be good with cultural references, for example. Or maybe it's not going to be able to solve an institution. What are you going to do with this institution in the source country? You have to do research. You have to see what techniques you're going to apply. I'm going to do an adaptation, cultural adaptation. No. So all those decision-making process that is so important in translation, you will have to decide by yourself. So I would say that yes, with caution and with post-editing.
Thank you.
Yvette Pineda wrote in, Bianca, 1 second. Yvette first and then Bianca. Yvette said, hola Karen, disculpa, me perdí la primera parte de tu presentación. ¿Cuál es tu título de graduación y la fecha en que te graduaste? That's Yvette.
Hola Yvette, gracias por tu pregunta. Yo me gradué con un bachelor's degree en español, con la concentración en traducción. Obtuve el certificado de traducción también y hice un minor en lingüística.
¿Y la fecha?
Me gradué en el agosto del 2020.
Muchas gracias. And now we have Bianca who has a question. Bianca.
I have a question for Karen. So how do you better prepare yourself for an internship in market research?
I honestly didn't do an internship in market research. However, for any type of internship, your best skill is the willingness to learn, and the willingness to grab as much as you can. I did my internship with the courts of New York. I walked into the legal environment without knowing much, and I grabbed the best that I could, and I did interpreting. I did court interpreting 2 years later. So my best advice would be walk into whatever you do with the best intention, the best attitude, and grab the best that you can out of it. Make the best out of it. Yeah.
And that's my first question. My second question is, do you have any advice for me, because I'm taking Spanish 102 this semester, and I'm really trying to get better at it, but can you recommend like anything that can help me get better at this, so I can I really want to get a good grade this semester, so If you can recommend anything that will help me get there.
I would say expose yourself to the language as much as you can. And if you don't speak it fluently, I'm not sure if you do, but if you don't feel embarrassed. Try it, because in fact, I chose this career path because I had a language barrier when I was 14, and I speak English now, and I expose myself to the language when I didn't know. Read as much as you can. Listen to music, whichever genre of music that you like, listen to it in Spanish. If you like a subject, podcasts are available in our phones anytime, right? If you like reading, read a book, try to read a book. And then if you like translating, take advantage of that book and start translating whatever you don't understand, so you can enrich your language and broaden your vocabulary even more.
Thank you so much for your advice.
Sure.
And if I can give you some advice too, Bianca, I agree with everything that Karen said. And I always told my students not only to read if you want to translate. Reading is super important, but if you're in Spanish 102, for example, and if you watch Netflix or movies or you like shows in Spanish, originally in Spanish, and there are so many Colombian films, movies from Spain, from Argentina, watch them in Spanish with subtitles in Spanish. So that way you will see how certain words are written, for example. So that is going to force you to read at the same time that you are listening. That's one thing. And also keep in mind that we have tutors in the Spanish department, and we have, for example, Beatriz Gamarra is with us. Hi, Beatriz. And she has conversation hours every week. So you are more than welcome to come. Conversation is Thursday, Beatriz? Thursdays?
Sí, miércoles de 3 a 5 y jueves de 3:15 a 5:15.
Okay, so you have Wednesday, you have Thursdays to converse, to practice Spanish, to talk. So try to get advantage of all the resources, as Karen said, that university offers you. Cultural events in Spanish, we have like every semester, every month, actually, we have the Café Literario, which is a space to have coffee, donuts, and speak in Spanish about a poem, about a piece of literary work led by Dr. Zapata, and it's another opportunity to read and speak in Spanish and listen. So there are multiple options and possibilities to definitely work and improve your Spanish. So be our guest.
So my other question is, where is this located on campus for 3:15 to 5:15 for this?
So Beatriz is on the 3rd floor of the Schmidt Hall, you know, Schmidt Hall. And it's on the 3rd floor in Teresa de Escoriaza room, which is a room in the center, in the middle of the 3rd floor. So
You know the room number?
doesn't have a number. Doesn't have a number. It's like literally when you leave the elevator to the left.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bianca, we'll send you an email. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, Beatriz, you can send Bianca an email. Maybe you want to share your email, Bianca, on the chat.
Sí, gracias.
De nada.
And my other question is, my teacher always told us that we should be watching Rosa de Guadalupe. She said that would always help, but I'm not really sure if that's gonna get me anywhere. Do you have anything else?
Is that a show or something?
Yeah, it's like a type of show, and she wants us to watch it, but I feel like that's not gonna help. Do you have anything else?
I mean, anything and any exposure to Spanish is going to help you.
Okay. Gracias.
De nada. Any other question, comments about market research, about translation?
Yvette says, ¿cuál es? Okay. Mi posición de trabajo es revisora de calidad de textos lingüísticos, y lo que más disfruto es revisar, disfruto todo el proceso, pero me gusta mucho revisar textos que tengan que ver con la tecnología, y me gusta enfrentarme a los retos del área de localización, porque es muy interesante la localización y es algo que como que te hace pensar, wow, yo no sabía esto, yo hablo español, pero ¿cómo no puedo saber esto? Entonces, enriqueces tu idioma al mismo tiempo y te culturizas más con las personas hispanohablantes de otros países.
¿Puedes poner un ejemplo de localización para que entienda todo el mundo a qué te refieres con eso?
Sí, vamos a decir que estamos traduciendo un panfleto para una universidad en Colombia. Pues digo Colombia porque yo soy colombiana. Entonces viene de inglés y lo vamos a poner en el mercado colombiano, pero entonces el texto en inglés dice que el costo de una
I'm
convención...
gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Hello.
Hello, sí, estamos aquí.
Disculpen, vamos a decir que el panfleto dice, el costo de la convención es $5. Entonces, tú no vas a traducir en Colombia que el costo de la convención es $5. Tú tienes que decir que el costo de la convención en Colombia serían 30.000 pesos. Entonces, tienes que convertir eso para localizar la moneda del mercado con el que estás trabajando. Lo mismo puede ser con las medidas. En los Estados Unidos usamos los pies, en Colombia usamos los metros. Entonces, si tú le dices a alguien, no, es que esto es 5 pies, 6 pulgadas, decir, pero ¿y qué es esto? O sea, metro y centímetros. Entonces, eso es un ejemplo de localización, tratar el idioma o el mercado meta de una manera natural, de que no se vaya a traspasar el texto fuente con errores que la persona vaya a decir que de qué estás hablando, que no entiendo, me perdí.
O sea, lo que hemos visto en clase, que veo a muchas estudiantes de mi clase de 350, de lo que se trata de una adaptación cultural, ¿no?
Sí.
En el chat he visto que hay varias cosas. Hay Camila Kuruk estaba preguntando acerca de cómo puede mejorar su idioma, creo. Entonces, a lo mejor Beatriz o Harley le quieren poner en el chat vuestros correos electrónicos para poder practicar. Y luego tiene que estudió Karen en la universidad cuando se graduó, ya lo hemos contestado. ¿En qué forma hablar español le ayudó a encontrar trabajo? Yo creo que eso lo hemos hablado un poquito, pero sí, o sea, ¿qué lugar tiene el español en tu vida laboral o cómo te ayudó eso a encontrar el trabajo en G3, en tu empresa?
Me ayudó el hecho, o sea, me ayudó el simple hecho de hablar español, pero no solamente de hablarlo, sino de haber tenido una educación en el idioma y de haberme especializado y haber aprendido lo que fue tuvo que ver mucho la traducción también, porque obviamente G3 es una compañía de traducción y eso fue básicamente lo que me ayudó. O sea, simplemente, no solamente simplemente el hecho de hablar español, pero haber tenido una educación en español y aparte de eso haber probado de que esa educación sirvió a través de ese examen en el proceso de entrevista, fue lo que me ayudó a llegar a la posición de mi trabajo actualmente. Una cosa de tiempo.
No sé si alguien tiene alguna pregunta más, algún comentario. Yo te quería preguntar, Karen, ¿cuáles son tus próximas aspiraciones? En el sentido, yo sé que llevas poquito en la empresa esta de traducción, pero no sé, como que tú misma, yo sé que eres una persona con muchas inquietudes, porque me acuerdo que tú llegaste a la Universidad de Montclair solamente para hacer el Certificate in Translation y al final terminaste haciendo el Major in Spanish, Minor in Linguistics. ¿Y cuáles son tus próximas aspiraciones? ¿Estás pensando ya que te gustaría hacer otro tipo de trabajo un poquito más ambicioso? ¿Que te gustaría seguir estudiando, formándote?
Sí, dentro de G3 la meta es llegar a ser project manager. Disculpa, Ángela, tienes el micrófono prendido.
No sé, ¿hay alguien que que se ha escuchado, si se puede, Ángela Pacheco, si se puede poner en mute, ok, la voy a poner yo. Vale. Si quiere participar, me lo dice Ángela. Sigue, Karen, perdona.
Sí, dentro de la compañía quiero llegar a ser de pronto project manager, que en el proceso, en los 11 meses que llevo en G3 me he dado cuenta que es un proceso largo, pero se puede lograr. No por la compañía ni la cultura de la compañía, es porque realmente se requiere más preparación y la industria evoluciona tan rápido como los idiomas. Entonces hay que estar todo el tiempo actualizando. Quiero seguir estudiando, a mí me gusta mucho estudiar. Quiero hacer a lo mejor de pronto un certificado de graduado con Montclair. Aparte de eso, como les mencionaba anteriormente, como hice el examen de per diem en las Cortes de New York hace años, a lo mejor para mantener esa certificación tuve que tomar un examen de nuevo para poder continuar en el futuro, dejar esa puerta abierta de poder a lo mejor en el futuro ocuparme de tiempo completo y ser intérprete en el ámbito jurídico. Tengo planes de tomar el examen de la ATA, que honestamente desde que me gradué tuve la intención, pero vino la pandemia y de otras cosas y pues eso a lo mejor nos atrasó a muchas personas en todo, pero ser certificado por la ATA es algo muy bueno. Y para los que están interesados o no sabían, la Asociación Americana de Traductores tiene un examen simulacro, un mock test, que es un poco más económico que el regular. Por si están interesados en tomarlo, pues yo me enteré de eso y les comparto el dato. Me gustaría hacer a lo mejor una especialización en localización. La localización es algo que me trae loca últimamente y me parece súper interesante.
Muy bien. Bueno, pues si no hay ninguna pregunta más ni comentario, he visto que en el chat hay bastantes personas que te están dando las gracias, te están felicitando, Karen, dice la profesora Mayra Bedillo, por ver una persona tan preparada, una joven tan preparada y centrada. Te están felicitando, te dan las gracias, gracias por compartir, gracias por ser una persona tan exitosa. Mira, Harley Macbeth es una estudiante nuestra que está haciendo un double major además en Communication Studies and Spanish. Y ella también está ayudando en el laboratorio, en tutoring, y me comenta aquí efectivamente que el market research es un aspecto muy importante, ¿no? En su trabajo y te da las gracias también, ¿no? O sea que yo me sumo a a esos mensajes de agradecimiento, de felicitaciones. Para mí es un orgullo, como te digo, o sea, hace unos meses estabas tú ahí en la audiencia con los estudiantes y ahora estás dando esta Career Spotlight como invitada, ¿no? Así que yo espero que los estudiantes que nos están escuchando esta noche, en un futuro no muy lejano, también sean los invitados en una de estas eventos culturales, ya sea Career Spotlight, ya sea Ubisund, y puedan compartir su experiencia laboral con otros estudiantes e inspirarlos, ¿no? Porque yo creo que es bastante motivador e inspirational escuchar a alguien como Karen, que después de todos esos años de formación y de estudio, ahí tiene su recompensa, ¿no? Y sus ambiciones siguen de ser un project manager, de ir a la escuela graduada. Así que eso es fantástico. Así que muchísimas gracias, Karen, de nuevo. Felicidades.
Gracias.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Gracias.
Y buenas noches a
Adiós,
todos.
Karen.
Y gracias por participar.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos. Buenas noches.